You're listening to the Roofr Report, the ultimate podcast for roofing professionals, business owners, and entrepreneurs. Get insider access and hear about the highs, lows, and tales of triumphs from thriving business owners. Brought to you by Roofr, hosted by Pete McKendrick.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Roofr Report. I am your host, Pete McKendrick, and I am joined today by a special guest. We've been trying to sprinkle in some different guests from outside our industry, experts in certain areas that can help you guys in, specific pieces of the business. And this is a great topic. We deal a lot with the SMB market. We have a lot of smaller contractors, new contractors. If you've listened to our Roofer of the Month, you'll know a lot of our guys that we feature are in their first and second years of business. And so really excited today to have Angela Chanowsky on from Unique Genius. Angela, welcome. I'll give you a second here to introduce yourself and the company for anyone who is not familiar with Unique Genius and kind of go from there.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, Pete. It's an honor to be here. And I am the founder of Unique Genius. I have been a lifelong entrepreneur, started my first business, a dance studio, right out of college, and have spent years coaching and consulting small businesses. So really have a passion for small business owners, especially in the home service, home contracting space. And in that time of working with business owners, it was always like the biggest step is how do you get out of the weeds, get yourself out of the chaos, stop the philosophy of I have to do it all myself, and helping them really focus on their unique genius of what you do best, what lights you up the most. And when you spend your time as a business owner fully working in that, and getting yourself out of the weeds, that is how you get your freedom back in your business, really scale your business and create more impact and wealth. And so that's what we do at Unique Genius. And we do it as a tool through the use of strategic partners. But it is all about locking arms with business owners to help empower them to get out of that zone with strategic partners, which are a great cost-effective solution of virtual teams. And that's the way they can grow their business.
So what got you into the home services space?
So being a small business owner, and I grew up and spent most of my life in Nebraska, and now I live in North Carolina, was very involved in the chamber and the community, all the states of growing up. So was very involved with lawn and landscape companies, washing companies. So just always had a passion. I was in groups with them. There's a lot of the early businesses that I worked with. And so I feel like there's a natural gravitation. When I first was in the early years of this company, then that's just who I naturally gravitated to want to work with. And I think like vibrations and energies aligned. One of my first is I was traveling around speaking about a book I wrote on this topic. I got picked up and got a radio show on Turf's Up Radio, which led to lots more opportunities just to be in this space and be all in. And it really helps in the business. So we work a lot with home service businesses, but then really specifically, I pivoted to the roofing space. When you can dial down on an industry and we're supporting just that industry, we can get it. We can get in the inside of a business, know exactly the systems and processes that work, and so can align that talent a lot better for businesses.
Yeah, I find it really interesting, right? We've seen a shift, I think, in the roofing space of the business owner. 5, 6, 7 years ago, if you talk to a business owner, odds are he had been in business for a really long time. He probably grew up in the business. It was potentially a family business handed down. He probably was really good at the production end of things and really was looking for help more on the sales and marketing end of things. And now what we're seeing is more and more business savvy people coming into the roofing space with limited roofing knowledge that are maybe exposed to roofing for a very short time, possibly as a salesperson or an operations person somewhere in a roofing company. And now they're taking over these businesses with a much different mindset. And so what are you guys seeing as far as the business owners coming to you? What specifically are they looking for? What voids are they trying to fill with your services?
Yeah, you're right. I've definitely seen that shift. And so we help all different levels, all different sizes of business owners with virtual staff and outsourcing. But One we talked about is those people in the beginning. You're right. They started a roofing business, whatever their experience is, they're muscling it out as a business owner on their own, doing all kinds of the roles, doing everything, and that's the grind of when you first start a business. You're figuring it all out. But we find that far too often they stay in that admin role, like all the things that need done behind the scenes, a little bit too long. And that's what's keeping them in the weeds. They're just like, oh, okay, I can do the books later at night. I can go out and crank out the sales. I can figure out the production, all this behind the scenes stuff. And the sooner you can get all those admin things off of your plate and clear your mind, the more time that you can spend growing your business on really what takes you in your business. So one of my favorite groups of people to lock arms with is those new business owners that are just like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. And they don't really even know the systems and processes or the role, a title of a role that they need taken over that they're trying to replace with a staff member. And that's what's great about us coming alongside is we can be like, here's the SOPs that other people are using. Here are things in your business a person can replace that you are doing, and we'll help you create those. And we'll get you a rock star that can come in and take these things off your plate, and let's create these playbooks together. Now, as businesses grow, the roles are more specific. And the great thing about the person we start with in the beginning is we're a scalable solution. So as you grow, now this person is doing everything. They're answering the phone for you. They're following up on leads. They're your sales assistant. They're doing your QuickBooks. They're doing some organic social media marketing, right? They're doing it all in the back. Now, as you grow, you can have more specified roles. You can have someone in that accounting role in your business, a marketing role in your business. You can have a supplementer, an estimator, a dedicated client service representative. In the beginning, somebody's doing all those things, but then in larger companies, we place those specific roles with very experienced people in them.
Yeah, and I think this is important to know, right? Because a lot of people don't even know. Like I always like to ask a question when I'm talking to these newer business owners, and I say, first of all, if you have hired some people, what is the most important hire that you've had? And it's always interesting to hear their answers. Some will say my accountant, some of them will say my operations manager, my production manager, my office admin. It really just depends, right? Everybody has kind of a different group of strengths and weaknesses, and recognizing that. I think one of the things that I've found over the years in this space, even when I worked out in the field, is that home service people tend to be very prideful and don't like to admit that they have a gap in their knowledge or they have a weak place, something that they're not really good at. But I think recognizing that early on and being able to come to somebody like you guys and say, hey, this is where I need help. Like, I just don't get it, or I just don't have time for it, or whatever the case may be. Being able to step up as a new owner and be like, hey, I don't understand this. I'm not good at this. I recognize that I need assistance here before it falls apart on me. And I think the SOPs are a perfect example, right? I've known contractors that have been in business years that don't have SOPs in place or are just deciding to write them now, right? We just figured it out. Like we just kind of wing it until we get it. Money's coming in. Why change what we're doing, right? But it's becoming more and more important to have those processes in place right out of the gate. What would you say to someone who maybe they were a small business listening right now and they're thinking to themselves, well, I'm too small to be able to afford technology. We hear it a lot on the technology side. Well, I'm too small. I don't really need that. It's just another bill I don't need to pay, right? I'm not that deep into it. Or, maybe it's not where I should invest my money. What would you say to that?
How valuable is your time? You are writing your own paycheck by the tasks that you're spending your time on. So if you are doing $10 tasks in your business, then that's what you're going to get paid. And that's how much your business is going to make. And so it's not a can I afford this, or is this part of the budget decision? This is an investment in your business growing, because if you can replace, and a lot of people can't think of it as, oh, how am I going to replace 40 hours a week of my time? I don't have that much of 40 hours a week, but it'll grow into that. Imagine you replace 10 hours a week of your time. What could you do with that extra 10 hours of your time and your energy, not doing things that you're not doing well? How much more powerful could you be in your business if you had those 10 hours back? That's what I want people to like flip the switch and think like this is an investment in your business for $2,000 a month, roughly. That's a ballpark, depending on the positions that we're filling. You can get a full-time 40-hour a week admin in your business. That will pay for itself. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be you thinking like, oh, I can get all those tasks done. I'm just going to grind it out more. No, when they do all these tasks better than you, your business is going to grow by that much. It's just an investment to make that decision to grow your business and invest in yourself, that your time is worth it.
Yeah, we talk often about like how do we make more revenue and how do we affect the bottom line, but the reality is time is the most precious thing. It's more important than the dollar figures, right? Because time is the one thing you can't get back. And so I always refer back to this. We had Hannah from Smith Rock Roofing down in the Carolinas. She said, "Hey, we put technology into our business, but the same situation as what you're talking about here." She said, "It's saving me minutes in a day," which doesn't seem like a lot, but becomes hours in a week, that becomes days in a month, and that adds up to months in a year, potentially. And she said, over the lifetime of my business, could buy me back a year's worth of time. She said, you can't think of it in the minutes in the day picture. You have to think of it in a much larger aspect of how much time am I going to gain over the lifetime of my business, and what could we potentially do with that? Could we grow the business so much larger? Could we spend more time with our family? It may be a matter of just freeing up 10 hours in a week right now. Could be life-changing for a small business owner who's right now trying to do everything themselves. This is a long-term investment. Contractors look, same thing with software. They look at it as what can it do to help me right now? Right? Can it fix something today? And if not, I don't need it, or I don't want to pay for it. And I think that's a very short-sighted way to look at it, is like you have to look down the road. We got to look at the big picture. Like, where do we want to be in 3 to 5 years? How are we going to get there? And something like this is a great example of what you can implement into the business. I mean, $2,000 a month, you're not going to hire an employee for that. 99% of the places where roofers do business, you're not going to get an employee that cheap. So here's an opportunity to bring in essentially a full-time employee at a fraction of the cost of if you hired someone off the street and had them sitting in your office all day, and probably going to get a more effective, better trained employee, right? Like, talk a little bit about what you guys do on the back end, Angela, to prep these people to come in and do these jobs.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time getting them ready for you. So there's a lot of places out there to get outsourced help. Some people try and do it on their own. But when I created this, I wanted to create something that was completely different so that we could really lock arms with business owners and make a difference. And so I spent a long time building up a very robust culture so that we could attract the top talent. So much different than most of what you're hearing out there of virtual assistants that are typically freelancers that are working for multiple businesses at a time, and you just kind of never know the commitment and what you're going to get. We attract career-based professionals that are full-time working for you and only you. So one, we attract rock stars to match you with. And then because we just work in the industry, we have a mastermind and a program to, one, make sure that they have experience. We're attracting those people with experience, and then train them up to be ready to go. We don't just give you somebody and say, good luck. We keep you and them a part of our mastermind forever. So we are here to support you as a business owner in your leadership, in your processes, as your business grows, needs change, and they stay part of a mastermind of other people in the roofing industry, so that they can constantly be leveling up in software, in AI, in their communication and leadership skills, and bring back their very best to you. Unlike somebody that is from the States and sitting in your office, and the only thing they have from the industry is what you are learning in your own groups and coming back and telling them and having to give them exact things to implement, your team member can bring back ideas of what other people are doing and suggest things that you can be doing to refine your processes and make them better, besides being part of just a mastermind to level up their mindsets and come back the best.
Yeah, I love that, because I often say that one of the most underutilized pieces in this puzzle is the people who are supporting you on the software end, right? Like our customer success department, our support people, they're talking to hundreds of contractors a week, right? Like they have tons of contractors that they're helping, and they're getting a look under the hood of everyone's businesses, right? So they're seeing what other people are doing effectively. And like you said, like they're not sitting in your office one dimensional doing how you train them, how you've done it, or how you were taught how to do it, right? And so you have this one idea, you're kind of living inside your own business, which is fine, but obviously it's great to get outside help and get outside ideas. You never know when you're going to find something. Every time I talk to a roofer and they tell me something that they're doing in their business, I'm like, that's genius. Like, why did nobody ever think of that before, right? Everyone figures out something. And it's always great to hear those. And I think that people like this should be leveraged way more because they have so much more access to experience outside of your company. And they can bring so many fresh ideas in that could help you streamline things and potentially recognize opportunities that you didn't even know you had, right? And so I think we get so caught up in how we do business every day, and we just assume, hey, it's working, this got to be the best way. And sometimes maybe it's not. Like maybe there are things that we could do to make it better. But I think a big part of that too is getting out of being in the weeds every day as a business owner and being able to kind of take that higher level look down on the business and say, okay, now I can see areas of opportunity because I'm not in there living it every day. I'm kind of watching it from the outside. Talk a little bit about when you're working with small businesses, what are some of the first positions that you see companies look to fill? Like what would be, if you were going to make some recommendations, maybe I'm a business, I've been in business for, let's say, a year, I'm getting to the point where I probably need to hire some people. Who would you suggest to me as being some integral people to hire?
So we take a little bit of different approach to it, especially if it's the first few hires in your business, that you are a business owner that's kind of doing it all and trying to stay lean. You're figuring out, okay, what position should I hire first? And instead of that position, which is what most people think of, like, I'm just going to hand you a blueprint that works for other businesses. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Besides what you're good at and not good at, like what lights you up? What is fun in your business? And so everyone should always replace the same thing first, because the first thing I want to get rid of in a business is numbers. I don't want to ever look at my numbers. I don't want to be lost in those weeds ever. And I hate it. I'm not good at it, and it drains me. So that should be my first hire, is getting that off my plate. So we work with you and see, like, what is it you're doing? We call it a unique genius exercise, but like, what is taking up the time in your business? Like, what is everything you're doing in your business? And then let's evaluate. How much time are those things taking? Like, what's the dollar value task of those things? Are you good at them? Let's figure out how to take those off of your plate. Let's figure out all those things that aren't in your unique genius, you don't need to be doing, aren't making you as much money. Can we delegate them? Can we delete them? Or can we automate them? Because sometimes the solution is software, right? Like some of they can get off of your plate just by automating or shifting, or maybe you have somebody else in your business or your partner, or things can shift. And what can we take off your plate? And in the beginning, it's kind of a hybrid position. We maybe call it the admin in your business or your office manager, right? Because they are taking over now bookkeeping and marketing, and those are not specialized positions, or they're taking over ordering and pulling permits. And, we're training them, and they're having cross training on different roles. And that's common in the beginning. And so it's not really like a position name. Later on, you might have an office manager that is this hybrid, taking everything. And then we're not just taking what's off of your plate, but now let's talk to your office admin and see what she or he is really good at and what needs to come off of their plate, so that either they can be specialized or the person that we're hiring can be specialized. And then the larger you scale, now they become roles in your business that are a little more typical roles. But I recommend doing all of those based on what strengths and what right people in the right seat you have, not always following what somebody else's blueprint is.
I love this because I think so many times we're kind of caught up on like names, right? Okay, I have to hire this position now, and I have to hire this position next. And, like I need a production manager, I need an office manager, I need a bookkeeper. And really, that could all be the same person in the beginning, potentially.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that that's a great piece of advice, is maybe when we're looking at this situation, we're not looking for that specialized person out of the box. It makes no sense. And then we put ourselves in a bad position. So now I still have all this other stuff on my plate because I thought that person was going to really help bleed a bunch of stuff off, but they can only do this one thing. because we hired for that special position.
And a lot of times the other thing when you're talking about this that comes to mind when we're working with people is everyone calls things different things in the industry. Like you have in your mind what somebody is. And so like you say, production manager, supplementer, estimator, and then we get in the weeds with you and they're like, oh, well, my supplementer also does estimate, like they do this whole process. No, mine calls and mine argues for the money. Or same thing with like accounting. Are they the person doing reconciling or is your accounting person calling and they're a collections person? Because that's a much different skill set. No matter how large you grow, you're using something you heard or some other business told you to hire, and you need to figure out what the process in your business and like what things need done.
I like that. What do you think is a good mix of in-house employees versus, utilizing a service like yours? Like what would be a good balance to look for as a business owner as I grow? Obviously, I'm probably going to end up with some people in-house. How do I determine like what makes sense to have in-house versus what makes sense to leverage a business like yours?
Yeah. So you really need to think about anything. We honestly can take care of anything that doesn't need touched. So it is most of the things on the back end. Now, depending on if you are a company that actually does the fulfillment and does the production, and so you like somebody in your office that can be there for those production people to come in, or somebody that's actually making the coffee and like the warm fuzzy that's taking care of the HR and taking care of the people, then a lot of times people want that as a person on the ground. Or if as an owner, you want somebody, like going to get lunch, not just ordering lunch. More and more companies are scaling with us as a solution, and a more significant portion all of the time of their back end is with us. And especially if you start that way, then you don't even have the leader here in the position. And it's just you're scaling departments and getting leaders and people rising up completely on that back end. And that's not a sales pitch. That's just an example of like what we do in companies. And it's a cost-effective way to scale and know that you can scale. And then it takes one huge big portion of hiring that you don't ever have to worry about. As you scale, you're just like, we'll take one more of those.
What is the largest number of employees you guys have placed in a company?
Right now,
Ballpark.
14.
14.
Yeah, I think 14. And that's a company that just started with us. That's a larger roofing company, like 150 million, that just started with 2. We were speaking at an event, they met us and we're like, we didn't know, I don't know where they were, that they didn't know that this existed, but now it's a great solution to do that. So they have the resources and are growing fast, but I know that's going to more than surpass. Some people start with a whole bunch. We just had a company this week start with 6 people.
Wow.
We're like, all right, we're ready to scale, because they were, like you said, instead of making a decision of what do I need done now, they know they are 10xing their company. And so what systems and people can we put in place so that we can handle 10x of what we have now?
Yeah, I like that. And I think we're seeing more and more of that, right? I talk a lot with other people in the industry, around the industry, and the focus being so much on building like a sales and marketing organization that is essentially just a monster organization selling roofs and then using subcontractors to do the production end of things changes drastically how you're utilizing your employees, right? Traditionally, we were very production process driven companies in the roofing business, and maybe with a small sales force selling on the front end. But we were a lot of companies have production in-house. And so that was where the bulk of their employees were living. Like it was in the production end of things. And now we're seeing this like paradigm shift to where we're heavy on the sales and marketing side with very little, if any, on the production side. And so, like you said, the people touching the process are much, much smaller now. And so a business like yours, we could really leverage to run the majority of the business at this point, right? Maybe outside of salespeople that are physically going to the house and doing the inspections, the rest of it could probably be done leveraging something like what you guys are doing. And that's why you're probably seeing more and more companies adding larger and larger volumes of employees this way.
Yeah. And It's coming to the sale. I mean, we already support sales and recruiting a lot, like having a recruiting supporter, your top salespeople having virtual team members so that they can do what they do best. They can go out and sell and not have to worry about the parts of keeping track. They have like a babysitter I call it, that is getting them
Yeah.
on more doors and more sales and handling that follow up. And the sales cycle itself is being changed with technology of our virtual teams using software like Live Switch that we connected over. And you being able to see images of a roof and already able to see stuff so that staff on our end empowers the person going to the door. It empowers the person selling because they already know everything about that. It's crazy how AI will keep changing so that your people can focus more, like the sales people can focus only on what they need to do, the part that they are the best at, being eyeball to eyeball with the customer.
Yeah, and I think it's going to change drastically what the salesperson's responsibilities are, right? Like I think we're going to be able to use products like Live Switch, like you mentioned there, utilizing those type of products to be able to now almost virtually sell. I think we're moving in a direction, and obviously it's going to take a little bit for our industry to get there because we always are kind of we always take our time getting to those type of things. But I think there's going to come a time where virtual selling is going to be a huge portion of the roofing business, and obviously that will change what we consider our sales rep in today's world, to being more of like going in-home inspections and just more of a consultant, right? And like confirming a sale more or less. And that's going to really drastically change what those guys are responsible for, how many of them you need. And so it's really like we're seeing a major shift in the personnel, the type of positions. So it is a really interesting time in the roofing space. Back when I started, you talked to companies that had 8, 10, 12 sales reps. And now you've got companies making $5 million a year with the owner and one other sales rep potentially selling all of it, right? Because they're able to stay so lean and have back-end support like yours, technology like ours, that allows them to just run so smoothly because they're putting processes in place early on. And then they're able to scale the process and add the people that they need strategically. And it's changing the game of how effectively these companies can work, how much leaner they can run, how much faster they can grow and be successful. I was talking to a roofer the other day, 5-6 months in business, already $1 million in revenue with 2 people. 6 years ago, 7 years ago, if we ran into a $5 million roofing company, they probably had 20 employees. It's a huge, huge difference in the way things are going. I think what you guys are doing is going to become so much more prevalent now than ever before in this industry. Kind of like a third party, some really important responsibilities inside of the company and stay crazy lean, which is going to allow us to run some really efficient companies moving forward.
Yeah. And like you said, it's exciting to see what businesses can do in the space and scale quickly, with awesome tools. When they get the software in place and can get cost-effective solutions, it's amazing to see what businesses can do.
What would you say about SOPs and processes for a new company? Maybe I'm brand new, I'm just starting out, maybe I was a salesperson somewhere. How important is that stuff to get in place early on?
Important, and it's not as hard as you think. So I think it seems overwhelming to people because they don't even know where to start, because as a visionary in starting the business, like, you're doing everything and it's in your head. And one of my favorite ways, and we help a lot of people create their SOPs that don't have any, because they come and hire an admin and they're like, I don't know what to tell them to do because I just need to duplicate myself. And so we use a lot of AI, building custom chatbots, building agents with you. None of that is hard either. Like, you can talk to ChatGPT and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I want to build a playbook for my business. Ask me questions so that I can build a playbook. So we help people run alongside it, but use AI to help you. And you just talk to it and tell it what you do. Tell it how you do each of the things, and it'll ask you more questions. And then you start with a framework there, and then you can fill in the gaps. But it's so much easier to train somebody when you have consistent processes. When it's only you doing it, you're probably following the processes consistently because it's always you. But as soon as you get team members, you really need processes and systems so that you are replaceable. Otherwise, you are still the one doing it. They always have to come for you for questions, or your client isn't getting a consistent experience. And that's when you have a mess and fires and all kinds of things that happen. So as soon as you have other people executing things for you, it's important to have a process in place.
Yeah, and this is hugely important for the listeners to understand is that you will never be able to get out of the weeds without systems and processes in place. Because like Angela just said, you can never hand things off. You can never replace yourself. James made some really great comments when we did the podcast with him. He said, from the second I step into a business, I try to figure out how to make myself replaceable. Like
Yep.
I want to get myself out of there as fast as I came in, right? And so that's kind of how you should be thinking about it is like, how can I effectively and quickly get out of the weeds? And what is that going to take? So having those processes in place early on, I think a lot of times it's a pride thing. It's like, this is my baby. This is my company, because maybe I don't trust people right away. There's got to come a time where you let go a little bit and say, I need to be able to train other people to do the things that I do in the way that I do them so that we are consistent. I see more and more guys saying, hey, what we're selling versus what we're producing doesn't always line up. And how do we potentially be able to get a better handle on that and keep that more consistent, right? Because if you start adding salespeople, production managers, all these things, like how do we get everybody on the same page so that our experience is consistent? Because the worst thing you want is for a customer of yours to refer you to someone else and then that person not have a consistent experience with what that referring person had, but now you've created this potential problem. Get those systems and processes in place as quickly as you can. I'm a huge process guy. I love the process stuff. I'm a big proponent of do it as quickly as possible. Get it into your business from day one if possible. And Angela's company can help you with that if you're not sure where to start.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been fantastic, Angela. This is some great information. If I was a contractor and I'm listening to this and I'm like, this is exactly what I need, how do I get in touch with you guys at Unique Genius?
Yeah, so we have a special specific code for you that you can share along with this podcast. But otherwise, you can find us at unique-genius.com. Find me anywhere on social media, Angela Chanowsky. And we'd love to visit with you just for a discovery call, just to see what it looks like in your business, what things that you might be missing. Where are the gaps in your business? Maybe there's a lot that you can automate or just put on someone else's plate.
Yeah, it sounds like you are just a great asset from like a consulting standpoint that can really help just kind of guide them in the direction of, like you said, maybe we automate it, maybe we get it out of the business, maybe we do put someone in there to help. Again, I want to thank you, Angela. This has been fantastic. Lots of great information. I think the timing is great. We have so many new businesses, it seems like, in the roofing space right now that are, like I said, business savvy, in need of a lot of assistance to help them scale and grow and be competitive in these markets. It's going to become more and more prevalent to have services like yours supporting them on the back end.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Pete.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody listening in. If you guys have not listened to the other Roofr Report podcasts, you can find those on YouTube as well as all the other podcast platforms on Spotify and all of those. Our Roofr the Month series always has some great stuff, as well as some of these great conversations with people like Angela, James from Live Switch, and other great people we've had on recently. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time on the Roofr Report. Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening. Check us out next time on the Roofr Podcast. But until then, be sure to like us, subscribe to us, and check out all our other episodes on YouTube and Spotify.